Hi everyone. I've created this channel by the name of Shankarachar_ORN. My purpose for creating this is to discuss about philosophy optional for UPSC and to, if possible, to upload some of the lectures of myself talking about the syllabus points. First, talking about my credibility. I'm just an aspirant like you all. I cleared the prelims in 2023 and I gave the mains with philosophy as my optional. I've been studying philosophy since October last year when I chose this as my optional. So my journey has been with philosophy optional has been very tough because I found that this optional suffers an extreme lack of guidance. Whatever guidance there is in form of the coachings, that is decent enough, but I don't think that it is sufficient for scoring 300 plus marks in philosophy optional, which according to me should be a goal if to score in any of the optional, right? You take an optional, you choose one with the goal to score 300 plus. That is how you can ensure rank to get the service of your choice. And I really believe that what coachings are teaching is very substandard, and getting 300 plus marks using that guidance is very difficult. Why do I think so? And as you all might be aware, that philosophy scores a bit on the lower side. What, according to me, is the reason for that? That I'm going to talk about now in very short, and I will be making a video on it later, right? So, according to me, philosophy is a very tough subject. Any one of you who has taken this option and who has tried reading from the books, any book, be it C.D. Sharma, be it Vaimasi, be it Frankly, and if you have read the first two pages of these books, you will understand what I'm talking about. The language is difficult, the concepts are difficult, and that is why there is over dependence of students on the coaching centers. And this is what I believe that I can mellow down this over dependence by a bit using whatever learning I've gained over the past year. So I will be starting this series, and in the starting, I will be focusing on Indian philosophy. What I will be doing is I will read through C.D. Sharma and I will try to explain all the concepts that there are in it that we will come through while reading C.D. Sharma from the very basic first principles in the way I understood it when I read it last year. So you might think about why C.D. Sharma? Why is it important? Why not just rely on coaching notes? If you would have read those coaching notes, you would have come to this conclusion, at least I came, that they are very badly curated. They are just cut paste of random shots from C.D. Sharma or from other sources, and they don't help you gain that insight, that understanding, which is required to write good answers. And I studied at this, I will not take the name, MIS, something from M, and I just couldn't understand what the teacher was trying to say. So, according to them, if you read less, you will get more marks. I just cannot understand this logic, right? And to be honest, in whole of this philosophy preparation, this simplicity is the key to success funda. I cannot understand this. So, what I mean by this, see, of course, simplicity is required. Complicating simple things is very bad, and if you do that, you will not go anywhere. But simplifying complex things, simplifying things which require certain in-depth knowledge, is also not what is needed, and that is what will restrict you. It will be very very restricting for you if you will simplify things which are actually complex. And that, I think, is the case with philosophy, and that is how we were being taught in MIS. So my purpose is, yeah, so coming back to Indian philosophy, why I think C.D. Sharma is the book to study Indian philosophy. So when I was studying, I studied from coaching notes as well. I studied one, two chapters from Datta and Chatterjee as well. and then I studied from CD Sharma as well. What I found is that all the questions from 2013 onwards that are being asked in philosophy, in the context of Indian philosophy, all can be answered using CD Sharma exactly and precisely. None of the question is out from it. If you find any question in the PYQs which you think is outside of CD Sharma, please comment below and I will tell you the exact page number and the exact line from where it can be answered extensively. There are two, three questions which cannot be answered extensively, but yeah, you can fill half of the page using the knowledge in CD Sharma. So it, according to me, is an authoritative book. Even the language of the questions of, if you will see in your philosophy papers, in the Indian philosophy paper, you will see there are some questions which have a statement in inverted commas and then something is being asked on that statement. The statements in those inverted commas are a lot of time picked up directly from CD Sharma. In the later videos, where I will be covering different chapters individually, I will show you that. I will present before you that, and then you can make even more precise judgment regarding whether CD Sharma is important or not. According to me, it has the greatest return on investment. For Indian philosophy, of course, I have put my points forward. But when you think about philosophy of religion as well, in that around 25 to 35 marks of questions come from Indian philosophy only. Like this year, they asked proof of God from according to Naya school. That is given directly in CD Sharma. So if you attempt questions in a way that you prioritize Indian philosophy, then this book alone is worth around 180 marks. You can ensure those 180 marks. You can ensure that you can gain around 70% marks in those 180 marks if you study this book thoroughly. Coaching notes are also made from it only. They are cut paste from CD Sharma. But I think if you read this, if you know that it is the only source, then why not read it extensively? Because it will help you understand things better, and that will definitely. I believe now that I have made my purpose clear enough. So before going into the chapters of CD Sharma, we'll start with basic knowledge about what philosophy is. Because I think when we come into this subject, as someone who has not studied philosophy before, like I've done engineering, I had not read anything about philosophy before taking this option. People like us have certain preconceived notions regarding what this subject will be about. And many of the times, those preconceived notions are inadequate. Philosophy is much more broader than what preconceived notions we have. So, you also might have some of these preconceived notions. Here, I will put forth some of the preconceived notions which we have, and I will show you how this subject is much more than these notions. So, for some of us, we take philosophy optional because we think that it is something related to spirituality, right? But that is not the case. Even in philosophy of religion, we don't read about spirituality. We read about more we read at a more meta level, more basic things like uh, how can this spirituality be justified? What is the metaphysical basis of it? Right? Just don't think of the word metaphysics. I will come to its meaning later. But some these kind of questions are what are more concerned with in this subject. Some of the people think that philosophy is related to ethics. Of course, philosophy is related to ethics, but ethics is just a subpart of philosophy. Philosophy is a much broader subject as compared to ethics. Some of the people, like me also, I had this preconceived notion that philosophy is mostly concerned with what we will learn is socio-political philosophy. Socio-political philosophy actually concerns with different kind of ideologies like Marxism, liberalism, different kind of concepts of states like democracy and meritocracy, such kind of things. Again, philosophy is not exactly this. This is just a branch of philosophy. A lot of people also have this notion that philosophy is just about flowery language and being able to convince other people with whatever kind of inconsistent or illogical arguments. And so this is also wrong. On the contrary, philosophy is the most logical subject that you can come across. And Logic is also one of the branches of philosophy. Okay, so these are some of the preconceived notions. If you also had some of these preconceived notions, then philosophy is not this, it is much broader than these of the things. So, what are the things that we don't know about philosophy which form a big part of it? So, those are metaphysics and epistemology. What these terms exactly mean, I will come to later in this presentation. But right now, I just want to tell you that in paper one of our philosophy paper, you can look at the syllabus here. The syllabus head is History and Problems of Philosophy. In this is itself divided into two parts, Western philosophy, and then from here we have nine schools of Indian philosophy. So in Western philosophy, you have some philosophers like Plato, Aristotle, Descartes, Spinoza, and here you have some of the subtopics which are very clearly demarcated in our syllabus. So all these subtopics are mostly concerned with two branches of philosophy, which are metaphysics and epistemology. Right? There is some part of ethics as well in some of the chapters, but it is mostly derived from these two topics only, metaphysics and epistemology. It's not a basic subject matter when it comes to philosophy for UPSC, right? Okay, now coming back to this, the meaning of metaphysics and epistemology, we will come to in a bit. Now let's just learn about what philosophy actually is and how philosophy has evolved over the years and what relation it has to different disciplines and different subjects. So, on the base of it, philosophy is humans rationalizing anything and everything around them. So, when it started, philosophy was about rationalizing anything and everything around you, thinking about things, knowing about things, debating about things, talking about things. That is what philosophy concerned was concerned with at their starting. So, any knowledge, right? Any knowledge about anything came under the domain of philosophy. Now, this word knowledge, this is very important. You have a certain notion of knowledge. Again, we will be talking a lot about preconceived notions in philosophy because whatever notions we have about such words or concepts like knowledge is heavily dependent on the day and age we live in. So, our present conception of knowledge is based on our scientific understanding. Today, the scientific method has overtaken all the ancient ways of knowing things, or was not knowing, formulating things, right? Understanding things. Scientific method now comes supreme, and our definition of knowledge is also based on the scientific method. I will talk about it a bit later when I will talk about epistemology. Epistemology and knowledge are actually related. So when I will come to it, I will talk about it. Right now, just think about knowledge in the common sense way. What you know about it, just think about it. So philosophy in the starting was considered was yeah. So philosophy in the start was related to everything and anything about knowledge, and it arose from a sense of wonder. Right? We humans have an innate tendency of questioning, and I think this is the reason, which is well documented for, which is why we have evolved so far, and we now are in the apex of the food chain. So, if I'm saying that philosophy was knowledge of anything and everything, then you might ask, what is history? What is geography? Are these just branches of philosophy? When did they separate from philosophy? When did they came into existence? You might have also heard that philosophy is a mother of all disciplines. So, why is it called so? Let's look at it. Again, we have this preconceived notions, right? We know what history is today. We know what geography is today. We know what science is today. And when you talk about some dates, or some events which happened long time ago and what impact they have on us today, we know that we are talking of history. Similarly, when we talk about some landform or when we talk about some weather condition, we know that we are talking about geography. Similarly, when we look at some evidences and then when we formulate from it some hypothesis, and this hypothesis then we confirm using more experiments, then we know that it comes within the domain of science. But talking about the time of Plato and Aristotle, which is around 300 400 BCE, there was no such separation of subjects. Everything came under philosophy. So the question of dates and things was also under philosophy. The questions about mountains and all was also under philosophy. And the questions about causation, right? Science is also concerned with causation, which means studying about causes and effects. That also came under philosophy. Then, slowly and steadily, when we started thinking about certain things in more depth, then the subject started specializing. So, for example, you might have heard that Herodotus is called the father of history. So, what Herodotus did is he first brought in some kind of objectivity when we talk about history, right? So, he talked about evidences, he talked about first hand experiences, and he documented all those things to reconstruct history. And because he made it a specialized subject, that is why it became a branch under philosophy. And over the years, it kind of separated from philosophy. Similar thing happened with geography. Some, I think, Greek or Roman was is also termed as father of geography. And similarly, science also. It is said that it was Aristotle first, who, in his book Physics, is said to have made the distinction between philosophy and what he called natural philosophy, right? He termed science as natural philosophy. So over the years, more specialization happened within these subjects, and they, over the years, came to be regarded as independent of philosophy. So in the start, this was philosophy, all the subjects were within it, but because they became so specialized, now we consider these subjects as something different, and philosophy is something different. This is what we consider, right? Hmm. This is philosophy, and these are other subjects. This is how things have evolved. But still, there was no sharp demarcation. The sharp demarcation between especially science and philosophy has come only in present age, as late as 20th century, right? You will read about logical positivism in a Western philosophy, and that will consider about this only. It concerns about this only, how science is different from philosophy and what logical way can we find to demarcate between, to make a sharp boundary between science and philosophy, right? So that is what I wanted to talk about, evolution of philosophy. Along with logical positivists, you will also learn about Hume and Kant, who came earlier than logical positivists and who kind of started to put forth the modern view of science, right? I mean, not the modern view, but they started a debate. And such debate never really happened in Indian society. We always had a very holistic view. For us, if you will also look at Ayurveda, like modern day Ayurveda, it has researched in recent years. You will see that in Ayurveda, philosophy and medical science, medical science in modern terms only, right? All these kind of things are intermingled. They don't have a sharp boundary. So this experience the Indian society never went through. The Western society, because of some conditions like going through Renaissance, going to Enlightenment, going to industrial evolution, they undergo they underwent such conditions which led to separation of science from philosophy and which led to evolution of the scientific method. Indian society didn't go through this, and hence we always had a very holistic view of things. So we never separated, say, environment from philosophy, from environment from medical science, right? And whereas scientific method has done a lot for our world. We have been able to create a lot of machines. We have been able to pull a lot of people out of poverty. But because of taking things in a non-holistic way, and because of analyzing and differentiating things, we have also made a lot of things go bad. Like, for example, we separated science from philosophy and we made science as a thing which is value neutral. So there were not a lot of values attached with science. Like in India, we have this value that environment and people should coexist. But in West, because science was separated, it became kind of value neutral and unsustainable development began happening. And that's why we see today the condition of our environment. Right? Such all these terms, when it comes to rationalism, when it comes to modernism, when it comes to science, the way they are used in modern terms, are imports of Western ideology. Our Indian view has always been very holistic and has been different from it. But of course, because academia today is controlled by the West, so it is from their point of view that we see all the terms and all the definitions today. Right? What I also thought of is that I will keep dropping some of the essay topics in between so that you can relate how philosophy can be used in essays and how it can be used to score better in essays. So this is one of the topic I came across in a test series I took. This is a quote by Tolstoy which says human science fragments everything in order to understand it, kills everything in order to examine it. So it is on the line which I just discussed. You can think about it, you can brainstorm about it, you can write an essay about it. It's a very good topic. Such kind of topics can be asked in UPSC as well, right? Okay, now let's come to the actual branches of philosophy and where philosophy stands today. So, as I talked about, that different subjects, history, geography, science, everything slowly and steadily demarcated itself from philosophy and got separated. So, whatever kind of left out is called philosophy, right? And philosophy has a lot of branches. Metaphysics, which we have talked about, ethics, which you might know, aesthetics, epistemology, logic. Right? These are some of the basic branches of philosophy. Now we will talk about them one by one. So, what do we mean by metaphysics? And there is also one more branch, which is a sub branch of metaphysics only, which is called ontology. Okay, now let's come to metaphysics. What does metaphysics means? So, metaphysics basically means theorizing about reality. So, it talks about what reality consists of. That is the basis of metaphysics. That's it, right? It's not very deep, it's just a term. Similarly, what epistemology means is it means theory of knowledge. So it is a branch of philosophy which is concerned with knowledge, at how we attain knowledge, what kind of knowledge is true, what kind of knowledge is false, and all such questions regarding knowledge. I will give you specific examples so that you can get a better feel about it. First, just let's skim through them and see what they mean in one word, right? Logic. Logic you might be aware of, right? Logic means Logic you are already aware of, right? So logic is used in that common sense way only. Anyways, we don't deal with logic in philosophy. I mean, in philosophy for UPSC. It is a very important branch of philosophy, but in UPSC we don't have to deal with it. Now ethics, again ethics we don't have to deal with specifically in our philosophy option, but you have a separate paper on ethics. So what ethics means is what should be done, right? What should be done or what ought to be done. That is what ethics means. So say we have some decision to make. What decision should be taken out of the two? There is a reasoning behind it, right? Nothing can be unreasoned in philosophy. So this reasoning is what ethics is concerned with. Similarly, there is one branch aesthetic, which I even don't know what exactly it means. It's not also needed in our syllabus, so we'll not venture into it. Now let's, okay, now there is ontology as well. Ontology is just a branch of metaphysics. It is concerned with things which exist. Or sorry, not things, beings which exist, right? By beings, it means living things, right? So it is concerned with living things and philosophical questions regarding them. Metaphysics is about living things as well as non-living things. It is total complete theory about reality. Okay. Now let's just look at one example on all of these so that you can get what scope this optional has. First, let's look at metaphysics. So metaphysics is about reality. So in philosophy, we come across this problem of duality. I will explain this problem of duality to you in a minute. For now, I will just list down some of the philosophers who kick-started this debate and for whom this debate is very important in both Indian philosophy and in Western philosophy. So in Western philosophy, Descartes is the one who kick-started this debate in modern philosophy. So he's also called the father of modern philosophy. From his ideas, modern philosophy starts. Similarly, in Indian philosophy, the Sankhya school is a dualistic school. I will come about, I will tell you the meaning of dualistic. I'm just dropping some facts right now. Sankhya school is the dualistic school. And with respect to this, we will look at problem of duality. Now, what problem of duality is? Okay. So, in general, we consider that human body is made of two different kind of things. One is matter or body, and second is soul. Right? Now, why do we think that? Why this came into being itself? Let's talk about problem of duality. I will first put forth what this problem really means. So, human body in general, across cultures, has been thought of to be made of two different kind of things. One is matter or body, and one is soul. So, why did we think that this is the case? What was the reason? So, there are religious reasons as well, right? So, in Vedas, it is given that we have soul and we have body. In Upanishads, it's given. In Christian thought, it's also given. So, from here, both in Indian philosophy and Western philosophy, this thought has been there, right? That we are made of two different kind of things. Now, not all schools in Indian philosophy subscribe to this, as we have already seen that Sankhya school is the one which subscribes to such kind of view. And in Western philosophy, it is Descartes. Now, what might have been the reason for religions to think about this duality of soul and matter? Right? There can be many anthropological or sociological reasons for considering this. For example, when a person dies, the prehistoric man might have seen that the body remains, but something has gone, right? Something is not left with it. That something which is gone and not left is consciousness, right? That something which is not left is the energy and such kind of things, right? All these things they thought were properties of soul, properties or essence of soul, and whatever left after this was matter. This might be the sociological or anthropological reason for emergence of such kind of things. And because it is present in Vedas, Upanishad, because it is present in Christian thought, it from there transferred into Sankhya and to Descartes. Now, you must understand is that there are a lot of Upanishads. There are some Upanishads which talk about not dualism but monism. Sorry, monism. And there are others which talk about dualism. Okay, now what is the exact definition of dualism and monism? Dualism means two basic different kind of realities exist. We are talking of metaphysics, right? So metaphysics is about reality. It's learning about reality. It is what exists. So the metaphysics of some schools like Sankhya say that two basic different kind of realities exist: matter and soul. Whereas in monism, like Shankaracharya is one, the Vedanta school, which talks of monism. It says that no, only one basic kind of reality exists. Now there are problems with both of these views. What are that problem? I'm explaining you this because you can get a feel of what philosophical problems are exactly like, especially in the domain of metaphysics. So let's come to the problem regarding dualism. In dualism, you have a body and say a soul, right? Now the problem with this is that body and soul, first of all, are two absolutely different things. They have nothing in common. How can we draw this inference? Again, because soul in religious texts and through anthropological and because of sociological reason is concerned with consciousness energy, whereas body is concerned with matter. When a person dies, these things go away and these things still remain, which means they must be fundamentally different, right? That is why one thing goes away and one thing remains. Now the problem with this is, you see, um, when the problem is that if mind and body are absolutely different things, then how can they interact? What do I mean by interact? Okay, if you think about, say, raising your hand, raising your hand is an activity just thought by your soul, right? It is consciousness, part of consciousness. Okay, again, this word, what does consciousness means? Consciousness is made from the word conscious. Conscious means to be aware of. So, consciousness is simply the property of soul to be aware of things which it can perceive or which it can infer, right? Anything like that. The property of soul is to be aware of things. That is what consciousness is. So raising your hand, this happens in mind or soul, and this is about consciousness. But this consciousness results in actual raising of our hand, which is a part of body. Right? Till now, it must be clear that raising your hand, the thought of it, is a part of our soul, it's a part of our mind, it's a part of our consciousness. Right now, you can use these three words interchangeably: soul, consciousness, and mind. We'll come about the intricacies later. Right now, you can use them interchangeably. But the result is actual raising of the hand, which is part of our body. But as we have seen, that matter and soul must be completely different. Now, here you have to use some of your abstract thinking. This might be a bit difficult for some people to understand. If two things are absolutely different, okay, consider it as in this way, that there are two universes. This is universe 1 and this is universe 2, which are coexisting. These are two totally different worlds. Then can anything of this world U1 interact with anything of world U2? No, right? For this interaction, you might require some kind of a bridge. Only then it is possible. But we don't have any bridge. We have only two things, which is mind or soul, and matter and body. So no kind of interaction between two different things is possible. But here we see that from our common experiences, soul and body interact. So how can you explain this? This is one of the basic problem of metaphysics, which is called problem of duality, and you will come across it many a times in both Western philosophy and in Indian philosophy as well. Right? So the counter for you can be that we should reject this view. Why not? We have a view of monism, that only one basic kind of thing exists. Right? So why cannot we say that only matter exists? Like this view will be taken by Charvak, that this is a person, and also scientific view is monistic. I will talk about it. That we have only matter. Let's talk about the scientific view. Let's not talk about the Charvak view. The scientific view is that we have matter. We are made of matter. Our brain is also made of matter. And whatever is happening inside our brain, including our consciousness, right? Consciousness is our property of being aware of things around us. That is also because of some kind of chemical reactions. And chemical reactions are also because of matter and energy. And energy and matter are also actually the same thing. You might have heard of this formula: E is equal to mc square, right? So even mass can be converted to energy, and hence energy and mass are also interchangeable and same things. So according to the scientific view, our consciousness can also be explained using matter only, by using chemical reactions only. They have not reached that stage yet, and that is why this question still persists. If someday any of the scientists, any of the neurologists explains how consciousness can be explained using chemical reactions, that day this problem of duality will end, and we will. Okay, so we have seen what the problems in metaphysics are, what kind of problems are there. I didn't go into detail of exactly why Descartes or exactly why Sankhya school thought that there should be two independent realities, and what kind of debates they had with other schools or other philosophers regarding the duality. But I just wanted you to introduce to the problem so that you get the pulse of the kind of problems that are there in metaphysics. Ontology, again, is a branch of metaphysics which deals specifically with the existence of beings. Right? So a problem in ontology can be like this one. So Jainas believe that everything, even non-living things, have a soul. So rocks also have a soul, water bodies also have a soul. Every non-living thing has a soul. So for them, these also are beings. So such kind of problems come under ontology, and there will be debates regarding whether this can be true, why this is false, all those things. Everything like this will come under ontology. Then the next thing is epistemology. Epistemology, as we have seen, is the branch of philosophy which deals with theory of knowledge. Right? So what kind of problems can be there in epistemology? Let's think about them. And let's look at the view of knowledge, different conceptions of knowledge, how it has evolved, just so that you can get the primer on what problems in epistemology can be like. Epistemology is branch of philosophy which deals with theory of knowledge. Okay, so I will not tell you the whole evolution of knowledge because that can vary a lot in Indian philosophy and in Western philosophy, but I will just tell you what different conceptions of knowledge can be, how it can impact the metaphysics as well, and how metaphysics in turn can impact epistemology. So there, these two are interconnected. Actually, all the branches of philosophy are interconnected, and they are based on either metaphysics or epistemology. We'll see. We'll look into that. What that means. So let's again take a view of Descartes. So according to Descartes, knowledge meant something which is indubitable, right? It meant something indubitable, or it can be called as unfalsifiable. Knowledge is something which is absolute, which if it is true, it is true always, which if it is false, it is false always. So, can you think of such kind of knowledge? Mathematical knowledge is such kind of knowledge, right? 2 plus 3 equal to 5. If you think of it, we have a definition of 2, we have a definition of 3, we have a plus, we have a definition of equality, we have 5. So by definition only, this statement is true and it will always be true. According to Descartes and other rationalist school of philosophers, we'll come to the meaning of rationalism later. Just for now, just listen this term. For Descartes and other rationalists, such kind of knowledge is knowledge. But we also come across other kind of things like the table is in my room. Let's name this table for clarity. Let's name it as T1, right? So this table T1 is in my room. Will you consider it as knowledge? Of course, in our present scientific view, we'll consider it as knowledge. Why? Because, okay, now these are some things which I will put forth, which you will understand better when you will understand Western philosophy, but just go by your common sense right now. Why is this a knowledge? Because it can be observed and verified. Actually, the logical positivists are those who will delve deeper into this verification and verification principle, and that has a lot of bearing on what we consider knowledge today. The details will be seen in Western philosophy, but for now, even by common sense, you will say that because it can be observed and it can be verified that table T1 is in my room, so it is a knowledge. But people like Descartes and other rationalists will say that this cannot be knowledge. Why this cannot be knowledge? According to them, this is not knowledge because this is not indubitable or infallible. Why it is indubitable or infallible, not indubitable? Because it might happen that we are hallucinating. What about we are hallucinating? Someone gave you some kind of drug and you are just seeing a fake table which is not there. This can happen, right? So we can think of, even if we can think of any one scenario, that means that it is not indubitable and thus it is not knowledge. This you see that Descartes and other rationalists have had a very strong notion of knowledge. Strong notion. So again, you will hear this strong and weak in philosophy. This means specific terms, right? Strong notion, by what I mean by strong notion is that even if a very small condition goes haywire, goes different, like here, just one simple thing is wrong, and a condition for knowledge is not satisfied. This is what is strong notion of knowledge, which means even a small thing is changed and things go crashing down, go falling. Whereas weak notion of knowledge is this one, right? Because it can be observed and verified. Hence it is there. Even if we cannot observe and verify, in our present scientific knowledge, we will say that if we had verified it earlier and no one has entered that room from then a table must be there. According to our common sense notion, which we follow now, we can say that if, say, I saw the table yesterday and I'm pretty sure that no one entered the room, then also we can say that it is knowledge, right? But the strong view of knowledge with Descartes and other rationalists follow, which meant it is indubitable and unfallible. According to that, it will not be knowledge. Why? Because maybe we slept for some time and we didn't see anyone going in, and we did not remember that we slept. These kind of things, right? Okay, so this is how knowledge can mean different things for different people and how it has evolved over time. What we should remember when reading more about epistemology is that we should give away our preconceived notion of what we mean by knowledge today. Because when you will read about Nyaya school and their knowledge of universals, you'll get thoroughly confused if you do not let go of your preconceived notions. We will talk about it when we reach there. I was just dropping here that why this is important, why removing your preconceived notions here is important. Okay, so apart from that, yeah, so this was about knowledge. And yeah, I wanted to discuss one of the problem of epistemology, which is the problem of representation. So this will help you understand what epistemology is all about, what kind of problems we can deal in it. So we will be here talking about problem of representation. What this problem means? Okay, we'll see. So consider this is a person and here we have a table. Right, so this is a person, this is a table. Now you say that you can perceive this table and you see a table. You say that, so what we generally believe is just go by your common sense that there is a table existing in the real world, and through our senses, mediated through our senses, we see an image formed in our mind which is of that table only, right? Now this is a very bad diagram of table, but you understand that. If we want to represent it using some notations, we can say that some function of R, or say I, is mental image. So this I is the real table. Our senses perform some kind of function on it. our sense organs, and then we get the mental image. Now, the problem is what warrants you that what you see in your thoughts is also what appears outside, because everything you see is through your senses. What if your senses do such kind of function? Say, okay, so let's think of a function. There is a function fx equal to x. For people who don't understand such mathematical notations, I will explain. So, a function means that you will put a variable x in it and it will perform some kind of function and will give an output. So, here, if you will put x, the output of this function is also x. Consider another function fx is equal to 5x. Now, what this means is f means a function. If in this function you put in x, the output will be 5x. So if r, again I'm simplifying here, but you can understand what I'm trying to say. If you put in an image which exists in reality, which actually exists in reality, like this table, and if you perform this kind of function, fx is equal to x, then the output will also be x. Right? This thing is our mental image. If such kind of function is there, our sense organs perform such kind of function that then we can be sure that what is outside is also what mental image is there in our brain. But say if our senses distort what is there out in reality and what we see in our mind is 5x, right? Then we cannot be sure that what exists outside is also what we see. This is, in very simple sense, the problem of representation. We'll talk about it in both Indian philosophy and Western philosophy. So we cannot be sure about the things which are outside us. When we consider that, okay, all human beings see things similarly, but how can you say that person A sees things similar to person B? Person person A might be seeing 5x, person B might be saying 3x. But how will person A explain to person B that he is seeing 5x? How will person B explain to person A that he's or she is seeing 3x? Right? This is the basic problem of representation. We cannot be sure that things which we are seeing, we all are seeing similarly, and what is outside is what is the mental image formed in our head. Okay, so I think this is enough for you to get a gist of what kind of problems we will see in epistemology. Okay, now let's come. Okay, now coming to ethics. What does ethics mean? Ethics means a framework which can help us to take decisions, and those are based on certain values and morals. Right? This is what ethics means. Now, what are values? Before that, one more definition for ethics is a framework using which we can understand or rationalize what should be done. Now, ethics is based on certain values. Now, what are these values? Okay, values or morals. So, whenever we have a condition in front of us, we judge them based on our values. We see them through the lens of our values and we give a value decision whether we should do something or we should not do something. Okay, so for example, if you see an 8th class student hitting a 5th class student, so you will perceive this and this will trigger your values. This will trigger your value of non-violence, and you have certain values against bullying, you have certain values against ragging. That will trigger in, and that will give you a decision that you should stop the 8th class student from hitting the 5th class student. Right? So this is ethics, and these are values and morals. Now the main thing, so ethics is not that important in our philosophy option, but there are some places where it is discussed. For example, in Charvak philosophy, it is discussed. So, and in I think rationalist school in Western philosophy also, ethics is discussed in terms of freedom. Question came as well this time. So, generally, this ethics and these values, this framework, is not something floating around. It is thoroughly based in metaphysics or epistemology. So, what do I mean by this? What I mean by this is this can be explained simply by Charvak school. So, I will be explaining in a very simple way right now. It will not be thorough, which we'll do when we will look at the Charvak chapter. Okay, so this will be a very simple explanation. So, take it in that way. So, Charvak says that everything is material. Material. We don't have a soul, which means we also don't accumulate any karma and are not reborn. So this is the basis of Indian ethics, right? That we accumulate karma and we read those karma in this life or some other life or the life after that or the life after that. So anything we will be doing now will have an effect later, and anything which we have done in the past, whether good deed or bad deed, it will result, it will have an effect on our present condition. This is the basic law of karma. So because Charvak think that everything is material and we don't have soul, which means we are not reborn, and hence, according to them, there is no karma. And as there is no karma, so they believe that you can do anything. And you should do things for pleasure. So they have a very hedonistic kind of value system. What this means is, because they don't believe in karma, because they believe that we have only one life, so we should be happy and we should do anything which provides pleasure to us. This is their ethics. This is their value system. So you see how the metaphysics is and epistemology is connected with the ethics. Similarly, we will see such connection of metaphysics with ethics in case of rationalism, where we will talk about free will and freedom. You get the gist of it, and only that is what I wanted to explain right now. Let's come to the next part. Okay, now comes our paper 2, which is about religion, philosophy of religion, and socio-political philosophy. Okay, for this, let's come to this part. So these are the basic branches of physics which I have talked about: metaphysics, ethics, aesthetics, epistemology, and logic. Now we have certain subjects as well. So we have subjects like science, we have subject like religion, we have subject like political science, we have subjects like sociology. These all subjects are separate from philosophy. And because in the modern world, scientific method has something which has come forward and which has impacted every other discipline as well. So all other discipline including political science, sociology, even though they are part of humanities, they try to incorporate methods of science so that they can claim legitimacy. You can also see in the name here, political science, right? Sociology also talks, if you look at the sociology optional syllabus, you will see the first point is sociology as science. So every humanities subject tries to incorporate scientific method for the legitimacy. Scientific method is reigning supreme in our times. Why is it reigning supreme? What is the specifics of scientific method? All that we will come to in philosophy of religion, right? Let's not talk about that right now. And even in Western philosophy, we'll look at that. Okay, now there is a subject science, and there is also a branch known as philosophy of science. There is also a branch known as philosophy of religion. There is philosophy of political science, and there is philosophy of sociology. So, what these subjects are, these are the bridging subjects between philosophy and other subjects. As I've already discussed, that all the subjects were once part of philosophy, but now because of excess specialization and how things have evolved and how scientific method is reigning supreme now, things have separated from philosophy. But still, there exist these bridge subjects. Now, what these bridge subjects deals with? These deals with these all questions only. Like philosophy of science will deal with metaphysics of science, it will deal with epistemology of science. Like for example, if you look at science, we talked about the problem of representation, right? But in case of science, the problem of representation is not even considered. They see, in science you always collect evidences, and you always collect evidences using your sense organs. But science considers that whatever our sense organs gives us is true. That is the presupposition science takes. Right? So there is an epistemological issue with science. It is not presuppositionless. So all these issues will be talked about in philosophy of science. So what we have in paper two is philosophy of religion and philosophy of and socio-political philosophy. So similar questions of epistemology, metaphysics, ethics, and logic will be asked regarding religion, and that is philosophy of religion. And similar question is asked about philosophy of political science. Now, what is political science and what is philosophy of political science? What is the difference between these both? I will just explain in one line. And I will also give you one way of analyzing the essay which we got this year. Okay. So, philosophy of political science. So, sorry, political science talks about the descriptive aspect. What descriptive aspect means? It means that there is some political system in our country, right? There have been some political systems in the past. So what led to formation of those political systems? What those political systems comprise of? The description of those political systems. That is what political science is concerned with. Whereas philosophy of political science is concerned with the normative aspect. What I mean by normative aspect means is what kind of political system there should be, how our values should be aligned, so that we can form a particular kind of political system which will be good for humans. Right? That is what philosophy of political science will deal with. And of course, it will look at things from the basis of metaphysics, it will look at things from the basics of ethics, it will look at things from the basics of epistemology. This is how philosophy of political science and political science are different. And that is why, if you will look at the syllabus of political science, the part 1A of their syllabus is highly overlapping with the syllabus of political philosophy that is there in our syllabus. But there will be different in approaches, right? So there will be different in approaching the answer as well. This is the basic difference between these two subjects. Similarly, when it comes to sociology, you will learn about caste, you will learn about gender, feminism, and all those things. Now, what philosophy of sociology, which we include in socio-political philosophy, will talk about it from perspectives of metaphysics, ethics, epistemology, as I have explained in case of philosophy of political science, right? So this I think will help you gain what you can expect to learn in all the different subjects. That is what I wanted to discuss in this lecture, in this presentation. I should stop calling that a lecture, right? Okay, so what we have in syllabus, I think we have already talked about this. In paper one, we have Western thinkers and we have Indian schools. And metaphysics and epistemology is the main focus. Ethics, logic also touched upon, but you don't have to study for them anything extra. And everything is there in CD Sharma, as I've already talked about. So from the next lecture, we'll start with the Charvak chapter of CD Sharma.